Here to go further in depth, we welcome in Matt Schlapp. Matt's chairman of the American Conservative Union, former deputy assistant political director for President George W. Bush, joining us from our Newsmax bureau in Washington. Matt, let's begin with your reaction to what the president had to say last night.
Well, I have to say, I'm still flabbergasted. I shouldn't be, because there was reporting that this would happen for weeks and months and before the election. But it's just audacious for a president to come out and tell the American voters, who literally just gave him a vote of no confidence, literally days ago, and tell them that he doesn't care what they think, that he's going to go ahead and do what he thinks. He's going to disregard the Constitution. He's going to disregard the doctrine of the separation of powers. He's obviously going to disregard the rule of law. He doesn't care at all about Congress. And he's going to do what he wants to do because it's in his political interest, I suppose, to do it. And I just think it's repulsive. And we're in a very bad place because of this.
Usually the president's rhetorical MO has been to blame George W. Bush. Last night, he singled your former boss out for praise. You served as political director for George W. Bush. Let me put the question to you squarely. Is what President Obama trying to do by executive order, is it no different from what your former boss did?
It's completely different. First of all, the thing that is the most obnoxious part about this is that you have a president of the United States basically taking the legislative powers, you know this, JD, you serve this, as if they're his executive powers. And that is obnoxious, and that is wrong. And by the way, there are liberals and conservatives, people across the political spectrum, who really think this is an irresponsible step. There are people who believe in having a bill go through Congress, an immigration reform bill fixing some of these problems, who also think this is a mistake, because I think you understand very well that this bold political action that he's taken, this power grab, really makes it very hard to ever get together on a legislative fix to some of these immigration questions. So no, I think it's much different. It's much more insulting. To compare yourself to Ronald Reagan like he did is just, it's a fabrication. Ronald Reagan gave status to people because of, in working with Congress, because there's a natural disaster, because there's a political disaster. This has nothing to do with any of those things. And to compare himself to those Republican leaders is just, once again, it's incorrect, it's fraudulent.
Well, that fraudulent representation has led to a whole lot of frustration up on Capitol Hill. Let's listen together to what Speaker Boehner had to say.
Instead of working together to fix our broken immigration system, the president says he's acting on his own. That's just not how our democracy works. The president had said before that he's not king and he's not an emperor, but he's sure acting like one. And he's doing it at a time when the American people want nothing more than for us to work together.
So, Matt, you heard Speaker Boehner there, but let's face it, there are different points of view among Republicans in the House and Senate. Indeed, the Senate passed what many of us regard as a de facto amnesty bill earlier this year. It is on hold in the House. We saw Eric Cantor lose his seat in a Virginia Republican primary as the Republican majority leader, a lot of it dealing with concerns about immigration. Has the president been clever here by catching Republicans perhaps frustrated but ultimately flat-footed because there is such dissension within the Republican ranks? Have about a minute to comment on that, Matt.
Yeah, I think you're right. He is doing this. Ultimately, this is being done for political reasons. And he thinks that if he acts now in the lame duck Congress, before there are more Republicans in the Senate and the House and a majority in both bodies, that he can catch them flat-footed. And here's the sad part. There's not a whole lot they can do. They can try to do something on the CR. They can try to do something through the budget process or the appropriations process. They can try to link this to something else the president wants. But the president is doing something that's very irresponsible and very non-bipartisan, and it has nothing to do with what the message of the voters several days ago. So I guess he's done the right thing politically. It's the wrong thing for the country.
Well, Matt Schlapp, we're going to ask you to stay in here with us. We're going to step aside for a break, and when we come back, we'll amplify more the options available to those serving in the House and Senate, and if any of those options should be pursued, given the fact that funding runs out for the government, I believe, in the second week of December. More with Matt Schlapp ahead, but in the meantime, do you agree with what Matt had to say? Why don't you tweet me your comments at Newsmax TV, hashtag America's Forum, and we're coming right back.